Alright, what's up everybody, your Statistax here, talking about Baldur's Gate 3, and I just beat this game last night, and it was kind of surreal to have a 130 hour playthrough come to an end. And this video, to note, is more of a gushing video than a review. I think everybody knows where this game is in terms of greatness. You don't need me to tell you that, but I just want to make this video because I want to talk about it, and it's like almost like a therapy session for a good reason where I need to talk about it. So with that, let's get into it. If you haven't subbed, you know what to do, especially if you like this video, you know what to do there. I'm gonna try not to jump around everywhere. I tried to make this one a little more defined and categorized in where I'm going with my talking points, but it's hard not to when I'm gushing about a game, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm gonna start with the story because, and no spoilers, at least I hope there's no spoilers in this video. I'll definitely say beforehand if I say anything spoilery for anybody that hasn't played, there shouldn't be any in this video. But the story was great from start to finish, and it wasn't always in your face. It felt like a lot of times, honestly, in my experience, it was more in the background and brought itself to the forefront when I wanted it to. Of course, my choosing of continuing it was what did that, obviously. But it was so cool, and there was like side quests that would kind of like correlate to the main story and kind of bring it more to the forefront and make me be like, oh yeah, after like, I don't know, 30 hours of not paying attention to it, it'd be like, oh yeah, that's right, there is main story to do, and I'd kind of go back to it, but it never really forced itself. And I think my favorite thing about my first playthrough experience in the story was how much it made me question characters and question what was the right decision for what I wanted to do in the playthrough. And I thought that was so cool. I don't think I've ever had a game make me question characters as much as this one did. I mean, I played Fallout New Vegas and stuff, but I feel like you kind of knew what was what and what you were going to get out of everyone. Like NCR, Caesar's Legion, you feel like you're going to know what you're going to get out of them. And, those people you feel like you know what you're going to get out of it, like with the Grove and the Goblins and stuff, you know pretty much what you're getting out of that, I think. But there's a lot of characters where you don't, and I think that's really cool. There's a lot of questioning, and that's the part of replayability that maybe has a lesser feel to it, is when you replay, if you've beaten the game, you've gone through like a lot of the characters and such, at least in the main story, you have a feel of like what their tone is and what side they're on and everything. So, the replayability factor, not saying it's not there, it's for sure there. Pretty much the whole time I was playing, I was thinking about how I was going to replay the game. But back to what I was saying is, yeah, this game definitely makes you think and question a lot of what's going on around you. Who do I believe? Who can I trust? That kind of thing. It's really awesome. It's really, really awesome. This game really gets the cogs in your brain turning. And speaking of that thought-provoking aspect of the game, let's talk about the gameplay, because I played as a rogue with a subclass of thief, which that subclass allows you to have 2 bonus actions, and falling resistance, which the falling resistance, in my opinion, was a letdown. It didn't really seem to do a ton. I was kind of hoping it was more resistant to damage than it was. It wasn't that great, which was disappointing to me as somebody who, once I got to a certain point in the game, I really realized that I was obsessed with being able to traverse as much as possible, especially with verticality, when I couldn't jump a certain distance and stuff, and it would hurt. And especially because y'all are probably gonna laugh at me because I played as a rogue thief, and then my race was a dwarf. But I just really badly wanted to play as a dwarf, but I also really didn't want to do like barbarian or whatever a dwarf would be good for. Yeah, because I played as a dwarf, the fall damage was more present because he's so short that the fall is much further. Anyways, back to what I was saying about the gameplay, especially as a thief, I feel, was really thought-provoking, and I tried to reclass and kind of be like, oh, let me try another subclass of the rogue. I couldn't get away from being a thief. The 2 bonus actions was just so addicting to me. I was like so obsessed with the multiple things in one turn that I could do, especially because I became more of a dual wielder as well. I mean, I used a bow most of the time, but I also became a dual wielder eventually, and being able to do that offhand attack twice when I learned that, I was absolutely obsessed. The fact that I could attack with my bow or my main-handed sword and then come in with my offhand and jab a guy twice, you know, get that damage down a little bit more. Or if they were close to death, I could come in with my offhand and finish them. And that would be that. Is it bad that in the middle of recording this, I heard myself say, come in with my offhand and finish him? And started to laugh. Alright, anyways, the gameplay for the Rogue Thief was very thought-provoking, and it was super fun, in my opinion, because what would happen was, obviously, you're a thief, you're a rogue, you're trying to stealth, and you hold down shift, and it shows you the red zones of everybody's vision, where they're seeing, and you're trying to squeak between those red zones, trying to hide, and when you hide, you see your guy's silhouette, and what I would do that was, in my opinion, addicting, and I just absolutely fell in love with, was because I had 2 bonus actions. I would crouch, get hidden, my guy's silhouette would show up. This is where they would know I was. But then I could move away from my silhouette and take a shot with my bow, do a shit ton of damage with the stealth advantage, and then crouch back down, get my silhouette back, because when you take a shot, it unstealths you, and they know where you are, of course. So then you can crouch back down, get that silhouette back, and then move away from it, and you're hidden again until your next turn. So they won't even know where you are, you don't get hit. A lot of times I found myself being the one in the best condition in the fight because I was always being hidden. I was always hiding away, getting away from where the fight really was and kind of hitting people from the outside. It was so much fun. I think, and I don't know other classes, so I could get some of this back maybe if I play other classes and do the right things. And I think my next class is going to be a barbarian, by the way. My initial thought after beating the game, and you know, I completed the game as a rogue, so of course I'm going to move on from that for a while. My initial thought is how much I'm going to miss that multiple actions in one turn. I can, you know, do the 2 bonus actions. I eventually got things so that I could do more than one action. I had this bow that had celestial haste on it, which made it so that I could actually do 2 attacks in one turn. And that absolutely, or just 2 actions, I should say, in one turn. And I was addicted. I loved the multiple actions in one turn. The mobility I had was insane as a rogue. I mean, I could dash twice and then also a third time as a main action if I wanted to. So I could dash twice as a bonus action, running across an entire field of combat and then go stab someone with a sword if I wanted to. And that's the thing, is like, as a rogue, you're not stuck to just using your bow. I spec'd it so that I was good at dual wielding, and honestly, there was times where I was doing more damage with my swords than I was my bow, and some of you might say, well, then you were doing it wrong. I don't know, I think that's just, I sometimes had really good swords, sometimes I had really good bows. Actually, funny enough, speaking of your loot, I was editing some of the recording of gameplay. For all I know, it's out by now. I have no idea when you guys are listening to this. I don't know when I'm going to have this out. But I was watching my day 2 recording, and I found these boots. I used those boots the entire game. I just thought that was so funny. I found these boots that made it so every time I dashed, I gained electricity charges, and I was absolutely hooked on that because I could dash twice in one turn without even using an action. It was all bonus action. So I would like crouch, dash, gain my electricity charge, then shoot a guy with the bow, and then it was more damage. Even more than just my stealth advantage, I would also electrocute them and sometimes just fry the shit out of them, and they looked like charred chunks of meat on the ground. It was
Please subscribe.
great. But the gameplay is absolutely beautiful in this game, and it's so thought-provoking. And I haven't played much as other classes. I have played a little bit as a sorcerer, a tiny bit to the point where I won't even count it as a bard, and a little bit as a barbarian so far. And as far as I can tell, every class I've played as is thought-provoking for sure. And it's just, they all have unique ways of being thought-provoking. The way you play, the style is so different. It's so cool. And like, even when I was playing co-op with my friends in this playthrough, one of my friends was a warlock, the other was a monk. And the entire time we were playing together, I was asking them about how they played, why they did this, why they did that, and they always had these reasons, and it was clearly like they were formulating their own style of play through the way the class plays and their equipment they had and all this stuff. It was just so interesting, and it seems like there's just an infinite number of ways to create your guy. There's definitely builds in this game, no question about it. I think anybody that's already played the game knows that, and even people that haven't, if you've looked at the game at all, I'm sure you know that. The amount of builds you can do and stuff, like even I was starting to get equipment to build in a completely different direction than what I already had, but I didn't want to change it. I really liked what I had, so it was interesting though, because I was already formulating a whole nother build without realizing it. And I could have shifted if I wanted to, but I didn't. So it was interesting to me to think that somebody could have picked the exact same class and subclass, but had a completely different style of play based off of what their equipment was and the kind of enchantments and such that they had. I aimed for basically numbers, like multiple numbers. That was essentially my aim in my class, was to get as much damage in one turn, but unique damage. Like I had my arrow, and then I had my electric charges, and then there was a point where I had this crossbow that dealt fire damage at the same time. So I'd have like electricity, fire, and then my regular bow shot on top of all that. Like, it was just a lot of stacking going on. So I always tried to stack things to get more and more damage out of it. And then of course I bought a ton of arrows that were different arrows. And that was another really fun part of being the rogue, was I could have every element at my disposal automatically, because if I went out and bought stuff, which was really easy because I could steal shit, and I would just go pickpocket a merchant, take all the gold. All right, let me see what you got. And then I buy a bunch of crap from him with his own gold. It's just the gameplay of the rogue was absolutely beautiful. Most fun I've had in the game. Of course, I haven't beaten it with other classes. I could be saying different stories later down the road, but the rogue was absolutely amazing. The gameplay was absolutely so much fun, thought-provoking, addicting gameplay loops. It was really fun. Can't overstate it. What I think made my first complete playthrough special was not just the fact that it was my first playthrough, but the fact that it was co-op the entire time. I didn't host it, so I didn't even have an option of playing it solo, which was completely fine with me, because playing this game co-op, knowing there was a game like this out there that was completely co-op with minimal to no issues really on the co-op end. I did run into one bug that they really need to fix. It was a headache, and I'll get to that in a minute. But you want to talk about thought-provoking? It's one thing to play this game and be able to take all these characters and kind of manipulate them all to coincide in combat, but to be able to do it with your friends, to be able to take your combat and kind of put it into this melting pot with your friends and understand, like, if I do this, my friend can do this, and then he can do that, and like, just, you know what I mean? Like, you guys kind of culminate your styles of play to make this odd interaction happen that you never really would have expected, but you eventually came to this realization that the two of you can work together and get this to happen. And yeah, you can do that alone by controlling all four of your guys, but I think it's a little bit more special when you're with your friends, you communicate it, and you make it happen. And it's just, that was a lot of fun to do. I mean, I remember moments where, because my guy had the electric charges, so he always was shooting electricity, and my friend could create water, so he created this big puddle of water. I shoot a guy with an arrow filled with electricity. Boom, the entire pile of like people in that area are getting electrocuted. Everybody's taking some damage, and it was just so cool to have those kinds of experiences. And then on top of that, there was, in combat, using the environment to your advantage or to your disadvantage. Sometimes it worked against you. I was playing alone, fighting some people, and unexpectedly one just casually ran over and shoved one of my characters into a ravine. I was like jaw dropped when it happened because it was so casual. There was no slow animation of it happening, no like zooming in on it, nothing. It just happened. It just completely, it just like, and like, just like that. Character was gone, down a ravine, dead, out of combat. I was absolutely jaw dropped, and for the rest of my time playing this game, I'll probably be afraid of cliffs forever. But it was just like that kind of environmental interactability, if that's the word. I don't even know. It's just like being able to use the environment to do shit. I remember getting at one point a character with, I had telekinesis, and I could take a character and fling them wherever, and there was this big boiling lava pot thing, and I just took a character, just threw him right in there, and that was it. That was the end of him. It was just, what a fun game. The environment is amazing. Everything is so good in this game. What a good game. And then there's the subplots, like with all the little outside of main story choices you can make, you know, how you can dictate a character's outcome. And, you know, maybe you help them, maybe you don't. If you help them, maybe they become a merchant in the end of it, and then you have another person to trade with, or in my case, steal from. And then the companions you have, and, you know, opting into one of your companions' quests, going through with it, doing the whole thing, seeing the character arc, seeing, you know, your character in the beginning of the game where they were cagey and maybe not so talkative, and then getting to a point where they're like, hey, you guys are, you know, best of friends or whatever, you know, you have these memories. And then on top of that, your character had this arc of maybe where they had a mindset of, this is what I gotta do, this is what I gotta get done, to they feel themselves maybe free and let go of that duty, like they don't really need to do it, and they learned through their adventure what's really important to them, and just maybe how a character's personality can change. And that kind of evolution was really cool to see. That kind of character arc was fun. It was really fun to experience. It was satisfying by the end of the game to see a character and how different they could be. And then one last thing, when we're going back to the gameplay, I felt like the shit at a certain point in the game because my like dexterity or whatever was so high and everything, and I could lockpick anything with ease. I could like just skip the roll and know that I'm just gonna lockpick this thing, and that's that. I got to a point where I was like, I had too many like thief tools on me because I never actually broke them, because I just was basically automatically getting it every time because I had so many bonuses and stuff. It was awesome. My friends would always be like, hey, we need you to unlock this, which was great because then you're always part of like, you know, like, oh, what's in this? What's the loot, you know? So being a rogue has its bonuses, has its, you know, little bonuses to, you know, being the loot ninja in the group. But, I really enjoyed that aspect too, actually, being honest. Not the loot ninja part. I enjoyed the experience of like, oh, what is this guy dropping and all that. Obviously the looting is always fun in any game, right? As long as, you know, there's a chance of good loot. But finding loot and then kind of like delegating it, like being like, oh, that's a reason why I wouldn't really, I mean, you can, but I wouldn't suggest having two people play as the same class. I feel like you'd be fighting over the loot a lot with each other, whereas it was a lot of fun to find something and be like, oh, this is good for you, oh, this would be great for you, or like, you know, just, hey, you know, would this help you, that kind of thing. Finding out, like, just finding loot. And it's not useful to you, but it's useful to somebody. It's useful to one of your friends. You talk to them, you say, you know, you send it straight to their inventory, because that's a thing in the game, which is awesome. They look at it, they'll say like, oh, no, it's not that great. You know, you could be like, oh, well, then just sell it or send it back to me. I want to sell it because, you know, you were the one that found it. finders keepers. Just so many good interactions in this game, so many good experiences. I don't know if there's another game that does it like this one. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down below though. What class did you play as if you've played this game? Are you considering getting the game? If you don't, I know there's people out there that don't like turn-based. If you can tolerate it, this is one of the best games I've ever played. And I've been playing games since before I could read. So anyways, let me know what y'all, give me some of your experiences. Give me some of the unique experiences you've had, especially if it was co-op. I want to hear some of the funny interactions or whatever fun things you guys did. What would you have never expected to happen, but did? Try to keep it spoiler free, but thank you so much for coming through, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and you know what to do. If you enjoyed, if you like Baldur's Gate 3 content, then stick around and get subbed, because I got a ton of playthroughs coming. So anyways, I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.